Okay, it looks like it's working. I think I can see a chat here. So this is my first time trying to go live on YouTube. So I'm just trying to see if I can find all of the settings that I need to start. But tonight I am going to be working on my 100-day project. And so tonight is actually night number 8. And I am working on this needle felted landscape. So I'm going to switch over so you can see. Here we go. And hopefully you should be able to see it now. There we are. Okay. And I'm just going to put myself in the frame so that you can see me as well. So hello. So I'm going to be working on this needle felted landscape here. And as you can see, it is a picture of Amsterdam that is made up of wool. And so if you've never seen someone needle felt before, feel free to ask any questions. I'm happy to answer them. But yeah, basically I'm just going to work on this for a little bit, and I'll try to come back during the daytime to work on it as well. So if you have any questions and you're seeing this after the stream has gone live and it's, it's done, feel free to ask questions in the comments, and I'll be happy to come back and answer them. All right, so what I've been working on over here is this building part. And so I'm going to go and start to finish and flesh out this structure over here. So I have some white wool that I'm going to take and use for shaping this building. But the building itself is not like a pure white. It's more of like a gray. So I'm going to blend it with some black wool that I have. And hello. How are you doing, Gail? Thanks for coming and hanging out with me. You are my very first person to come and hang out, so I appreciate it. Very special, very special. How are you doing? So I am working right now on blending some white wool with some black wool to get it to be a little bit on the grayer side. And I also have some tools that I can use to help me with this. But for this part specifically, I'm just going to take the white and the gray wool and mix it with my hands. Let's see here, I have these tools. So this over here is called hand carder, if you've never seen one before. And I'm going to take some blue wool just to give it a little bit of color to it so that it's not going to be a neutral gray. Like I want it to be a cooler gray. And I'm just going to lay that into the hand carder like so. And so it's basically like a brush. Hang on, I'm trying to get the other one. So over here I have great. So have you ever done needle felting before? Have you ever worked with wool or anything like that? Have you ever seen anything like this before? And if you have, what kinds of things have you either seen or made yourself? I'm curious to hear about it. See, so I went and I made this like cooler bluish gray. And so now I'm going to add this to my piece. So to do that, I'm going to lay the fiber down. And I don't want to make it super thick, okay? So I want to make it where it's just a very, very thin layer. And I'm going to map it out by using, I have this bone folder here. Hang on, so let me just move this. Okay, so I have this bone folder. And if I go across the top of this building, I can see that it lines up with this like bar over here, this top line here. And so when I look in the picture and I go across, I notice that that has to be just a little bit lower. So it would need to be over here. And if I make a mistake when I'm using wool and I want to go and change it, I should have somewhere on my desk a T-pin. So I don't want to use the felting needle. So hang on, wait, I had it, there we go. It got sucked up into the vortex of wool that's on my table of all of the colors that I'm using. So I'm going to use this T-pin over here. I'm trying to get my camera angled and everything all angled right. So thank you for being patient with me as I try to figure this out for the first time. But I'm going to take this T-pin, right, and I'm going to use it to pull up the colors that I want to change. Okay, so yeah, so actually as far as like spinning and felting, I actually got into spinning after taking a couple of felting workshops. So I had this extra wool, and then I thought, oh wow, like not only can I make fabric or felt, you know, with it, but I can also spin it into yarn. So it was a really neat, I guess, crossover where you already have the majority of the materials needed as a spinner or a felter to go into the other technique. So yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pull off this extra color here just because I wanted to make it a little bit lower. And I also have some scissors. Hang on, where did my scissors go? I was using those earlier. I have embroidery scissors that I just want to trim it. If I can't find my scissors, I'll just get, I have a bigger pair of scissors, but I did have ones on my desk. Like I said, I have all of these colors that I pulled out of my fiber bin because I wanted to play with them in, shoot, I did have it, all right. Okay, my scissors grew legs. You know how that happens sometimes, right? When you're creating and things just grow legs and they run off your table. Oh boy. All right, so let me see. I want to just trim it because you know what's nice about the embroidery scissors is that they can get really close and then I can cut it off. If I were to use larger scissors, I may not get so close to the fabric. So I'm just gonna give it one more look around and, you know, all right. Okay, hang on. I have some thicker scissors. I have bigger yellow scissors that I can use, and they were, where did they go? Oh Lord. Oh boy. Wait, no, I did, oh, there we go. Okay. They are in my yarn bin. All right. See, I knew I had scissors. I knew I had scissors here. I couldn't find the embroidery ones. Those ones are, I don't know. They just grew legs and ran away from me, but that's okay. That's all right. I'm just going to go ahead and trim this off over here. So Gail, what kinds of yarns do you like to spin? Are you like a traditional spinner and just, you know, spin like straight up yarns, or do you do art yarns or any kind of specific spinning? Okay, so now that I've trimmed the top of my building, I'm gonna go across, and so it looks like the top of the building lines up with this part here, so I'm gonna actually rip out the black part too, because I went a little bit too high with that. Let's see, there's my T-pin. My T-pin always likes to run off. Okay, so I'm gonna go and pull this black out a little bit. So I just want to make sure that what I have on the piece, like the wool here, that it matches in the picture as far as like where it's lined up. So I don't have to necessarily rip out or cut all of it. See, I'm just kind of like flicking the tip of the needle, or the T-pin rather. I'm just kind of like picking up the wool and shifting it down ever so slightly. I sound like you with wool when you can't find anything. I know, this is like a vortex of fiber. It just like absorbs stuff, and then my scissors go missing in it. My you know, knitting needles go missing in it. It's just, I don't know. There's something magical about wool, but it just, I don't know. It just like sucks things up and things disappear. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's maybe because you've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. But I don't know. It's weird. I can't even find those scissors, and I swore I had them last night. I was just using them on this table, so nothing you know, funny happened or whatever. It just they just grew legs and ran away. Okay, so how long have you been spinning for? So let's see, if I go across, it looks like that is where that is. Okay, so I'm just going to pull this up just a little bit more. So I think I started spinning yarn back in 2005. I had just graduated from grad school, and I had a little bit of money saved as a graduation present to myself, and I was thinking that maybe I would take a studio in fibers class, But once I saw what the curriculum was and like what it was going to cover, I realized that for the most part, either I knew how to do the techniques already that were going to be offered in the class, or that I could probably take a workshop that was going to be a little bit cheaper, and I wouldn't have to pay for the class, but instead I could get tools, right? So I thought, well, I'll go and get, you know, a drop spindle and test out spinning. And then once I did that, I really enjoyed it. And then I used that money that I had saved to get a spinning wheel. So it wasn't very long after doing some drop spinning that I was hooked with the wheel, and as they say, the rest is history. So yeah, so I think that looks a lot better as far as the height of where this part is. I might just try to get it to just go just a little bit lower. 30 years, wow, that's a long time. So how did you get into it? I think it's one of those things that, like, once you start it, for the most part, you know, it just kind of becomes part of your personality. Like, I really find it fascinating how there are some people that are weavers, you know, and there are people that are quilters and spinners and knitters, and each one has their own type of personality. But definitely my heart gravitates towards spinners, and just that, I don't know, I guess like when you are a spinner and you meet another spinner, there's almost like an instant connection, like a kinship that happens, and it's like, oh, okay, these are my people. All right, so yeah, so now basically what I'm trying to do is I'm looking at this picture and I notice that there's like I said, it's kind of like a bluish grayish white, and I want there to be a little bit of a distinction between the building and the sky and the background around it. So I think that the background is actually a little bit lighter, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some white wool, and I'm going to move this up just a little bit so you can see. So I'm going to take some white wool, and then I'm going to take a little bit of this kind of pale sky blue, but I really want it to be, for the most part, white, okay? So when you're a spinner, you know, you might start with wool that's dyed like how I have here, or you could start with natural fiber, but just like with spinning, you can also card it and make rolags and do stuff like that. Oh, okay. So what kinds of sheep did you start with? Like, did you get the sheep because you wanted to spin their fleece, or like how did you go about actually getting the sheep? Because I find it really fascinating how different people get into the fiber arts. You know, like we might all start from different places and spaces. Like I didn't even think about owning a sheep or, you know, anything like that. But just the idea of doing embroidery. And I had a cat that had fur that I wanted to turn into yarn. So that's kind of what led me down the path of seeing if I could actually spin his fur into yarn. All right, so yeah, so what I'm doing now is I'm basically trying to add a little bit more white fiber around this building area. And so by doing that, by lightening the area around it, I'm actually going to make the building appear darker. So I'm going to keep going and adding a little bit more white. And so see, by just lightening it up a bit with more white around it, now the building is going to appear a little bit darker. And I really want to go in this area here too, so I'm going to go pull up some of this darker kind of grayish color. Or maybe it's like more of like a peach color. So I'm just kind of like picking at it and pulling it up. So these were colors that I laid down initially that I just don't necessarily like right now, and that's okay. You can change your mind about things in felting. That's what's nice when you do needle felting. It's not necessarily permanent. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, Cordell and Polworth. Those are some nice fleeces to work with. So when you had the sheep, were you raising them to be specifically like a flock for hand spinners then, or were they like rescue sheep that you were trying to give a good home to? Okay, so I'm just kind of trying to pick up this darker kind of gray wool. It's like a grayish green wool. I'm just gonna cut it off. All right, so I'm gonna cut this off here. I'm just gonna pull up these little bits so you can start to see the background. So the thing about needle felting is, for the most part, you start off with the base, right? So like over here, I had this lighter color fabric, right? It was basically wool. It's called pre-felt. So it was almost felt, but it wasn't like fully felted yet. And you can buy it like ready made in that state. And then you basically take the colors and you apply it on top of it. And the needles are what binds the wool that you're laying on top to the bottom layer. Okay. Yeah, so then definitely if you're gonna raise sheep for spinners, it's gonna be a helpful thing to know how to spin. So what part of the country, or if you're saying good day, does that mean that you're in a different country than the States? Is that an Australian accent that I detect in your texting? So I'm just going to needle felt down some of that white fiber. And so yeah, so the act of taking the needle and going up and down is basically going to make the fiber that I'm putting on top felt or get matted to the layer beneath it. So it pushes the fiber down, but then when it comes up, it doesn't pull it back up. So it's just the act of pressing it down and going up and down like that is what's going to make it stick. There we go. See, I told you I could tell the accent in the text. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I actually just joined a Facebook group with a bunch of Australians in it, and so it's really interesting trying to understand what they're talking about, whether it's the types of food and snack that they're eating, because obviously like the candies and foods are different, or if it's just expressions, I can't tell like what they're talking about because some of the expressions they use are different. So it's quite interesting, even though we technically both speak English, that we're speaking similar words, but they might have different meanings and like origins. Yeah, so like one of my friends said when things go pear-shaped, and I never heard that before, so I don't know if that's like an idiom like that's more Australian based, or is that something that like people say and I just haven't heard that before? But I thought it was funny when things go pear-shaped. All right, so yeah, so you must be enjoying the summer now and the warm weather, while I'm in New York, so I'm definitely like raring and ready for spring to come, and I'm done with this cold business. I am not a fan of the winter. And I totally get, the whole, well, all seasons, have their time and place, so to speak, but I do not like the cold. So yeah, I'm going to also take this building out here just because I don't like how blue it is. I want to really go to get more of this kind of like steel, kind of like steel gray color. And so I'm going to remove this as well and change the shape of it. Yeah, see, I never heard that expression. So then, when I'm trying to have a conversation with the person, I'm trying to understand what they're explaining to me, but then I'm also trying to figure out, because the idioms are different, is this not, I guess if you hear something is going pear-shaped, for the most part, that they probably mean that it's not going according to plan, or, there's something about it that's not quite right. But, I don't know if it has any other implications or meaning. Like I know when I was taking classes up in Canada, that there was an expression that they used when someone is a keener. And so I just thought that was funny because in the States, if you refer to someone as being like a brown noser, it's like someone that's trying to like kiss up to the teacher or be this like goody goody student. But in their expression, like a keener, obviously, if you're keen, that you're interested or excited in something. But I didn't know if it had the same kind of like negative connotation as a brown noser. So I was like, wait, I don't know if they're giving me a compliment by calling me a keener, or are they insulting me, or like I didn't know. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna have to go and look this up on Google to see if I'm being complimented or insulted. All right, so yeah, see, so for the most part, I'm able to separate it. Now, if I go a little too vigorously in removing it, I might also remove the backing, and then I can cause a hole to appear. So I'm just trying to see if I can get, I would say about 50% of the fiber separated and lifted. And if I had my embroidery scissors and they didn't fall into the wool vortex, then that might be a little bit easier. But alas, here we are. So I'm just picking at it. See, and now, and this is my, I guess, Americanness showing through, but like if you were to tell me what it was in Celsius, I would have the hardest time figuring out what the temperature is. So you could just tell me it's like tank top weather or ring neck. Okay. See, now I can say that to somebody. So what does the idiom ring neck mean? Because I know like brown noser obviously implies that like you're trying to kiss somebody's butt, so your nose is like going up their butt and turning brown. But where does ring neck come from? That's an interesting. I'd like to know the origins of that expression. But yeah, I think they meant keener in an affectionate way, or in a more kind, positive way, and that it was more that I was so enthusiastic and so excited about learning something. So I don't think it had the same connotation as a brown noser. At least that was my understanding. I hope I wasn't wrong. Tank top weather, okay. Well, I'm in the type of climate right now in Rochester, New York. So it's basically I'm pretty close to Niagara Falls, like the Canada border, and it gets so cold here that like the inside of your nose will freeze if you go outside, and it's just it's not. It's not the kind of weather that I ever imagined living in. I'm not originally from here. I'm from downstate in New York. I'm from Brooklyn. So it's about, I would say, like maybe like 7-hour drive north. And in that distance, it's literally going from like, maybe an ice bucket in the winter, or like the refrigerator, to like the deep freezer with, I don't know, like dry ice or something, it's just way too cold unnecessarily. Okay. So yeah, so I'm just going and pulling out this wool over here, just because I really wanted to make it a little bit lighter, and so I'm gonna leave that. I don't necessarily need to remove all of it, because just the act of taking that out lightened it up, and it removed the blue. And so I'm looking at the negative space, or the space between them. And so what I'm noticing is that the top of this building, when I go across here, it's actually higher. Yeah, it's pretty cold. It's pretty cold. I would say in Fahrenheit anyway, there have been days where it'll go down to like -20 wind chills. So for you, that's probably like what, like -1,000 or something. I don't know what that translates to, but it's definitely like, why am I in a freezer? Why am I living in this place? There should be, like Santa's elves or something, or my neighbor. And I'm not even that far north. But you know what I think it is? Because we live kind of southeast of the Lake Ontario, and so the Canadian wind blows over it, and then we just get like snow, and yeah, good times. That's really cool. I know that there are a lot of shepherds and spinners and, fiber artists in New Zealand and Australia. So it's nice to have a fellow fiber artist joining me. So thank you. Thank you for your company tonight. So yeah, so I'm just adding a little bit more black to that color, and then in like kind of like a spinner, you know, if you twist the wool and compress it, it will basically kind of remove the air and give you a good indication of the color. So when I put it down, I'm noticing that the building has a little bit more of like not green, but it's not as cool. It's a little like a warmer color. So I'm going to add just a little bit of turquoise to it, and I'm going to use my hand carders to blend it. Well, that's good. See, that's what I want. I want to live where it's always positive. For sure. And so I think that's what's nice about needle felting, or just, you know, felting in general, is that it uses pretty much the same tools that you would use when you're spinning, right? So you can use hand carders to blend the colors. So now if I take it and I give it a slight twist and I lay it on top of the picture, okay, so now I'm getting a little bit better, but I think here it looks a little bit more neutral, so it's not quite so saturated in color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more white and black to neutralize it, but I'm going to probably add more white and then a little bit less black because I don't want it to get dark. I just want to make it a little bit more neutral. Okay, so I'm taking about that much white, taking a little wisp of black. Again, you know, I want to keep it light. I don't want it to get too dark, but I definitely want it to be more neutral. And so I'm just gonna lash the fiber onto the hand carder. So do you still have sheep? Like, do you still have a flock, or have you downsized a bit? I would imagine if you're a shepherd for that long, either you've gotten the hang of it or you're pretty much ready to be done with it. Okay, so yeah, so see here, if I take it, right, and I twist it and I go down, so now I'm pretty close in color, like you can see I'm just waiting to see if how it shows up, but by looking at it with the wool next to it, now I'm really getting close to that color range that I'm after. So I'm going to go ahead and take that fiber and I'm going to look and see, okay, so if this building is over here and then there's a little bit of a shadow there, and that's where the yellow part starts. So I'm going to start building the building, if you will, in this space, and I can always get darker, I can always add more layers to it, but now I'm going to go with my needles. I'm going to actually use a single one just so that I can get a really nice edge. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm just kind of going and working up and down this edge here. And then the edge of the building, and I know that the glare was kind of making it hard to see, so I'm going to try to keep it angled, but there's kind of like a jagged line, so I'm going to try to move my needle while I'm poking at the wool in those directions. So like I'm going to go left and right, and then I'm going to tuck that fiber down to get a crisp edge here, you know, and then I'll bring it back up and I'll go up over here. So I'm going up a little bit higher. And then I'm going to look and see, okay, so then it goes up a little higher still. So I'm going to go left and right to get the top edge of that building, and kind of, I'm basically drawing the outline of it with my needle just to get those edges to be a little bit more crisp. And then if I have this wool or fluff that's kind of like sitting up on top, I can then just bring it down and kind of guide it into the spaces that I want it to go. So I can see if I can make my camera just a little bit larger and zoom in to the area that I'm working so that you can see. So give me 1 second to see if I can just zoom in just a little bit more. Let's see if I can get it so you can see. Okay. So I'm just going to do an extreme close-up. All right. So hopefully now you can like see this area that I'm working in. Okay, and then when I take my needle, right, so like I was working over here, I'll just move it up so you can see, but I'm just kind of like working that top edge. And then it kind of comes down on a diagonal. And it looks like it's a little bit wider than how I initially made it, so I'm gonna extend the building that I made. I'm just gonna have it like jut out just a little bit. And then all of these loose fibers that are kind of like up here in this area, I'm gonna take them and fold them down. And then with my needle, I will kind of guide those colors so that they will make more of the shape that I'm after. Okay. So do your grandchildren enjoy spinning or doing any fiber art with you? I know sometimes little children like to weave and do things like that. All right, so this is looking a little bit lighter than how I would like it, so I might go over with another layer of darker wool just to darken it up a bit, but I can leave the parts that have the highlights this color. So I'll just go and I'll add a darker wool in the places that I want to be a shadow. So if I don't want this part down here, right, to get, you know, covered with the wool, I can just take it and go up and then needle felt that. But again, if I want this top to get darker, I'm gonna actually cut it. So I'm gonna trim it right at the edge, like so, okay? And then I can just tuck those edges where I cut right down into the space right there. So you can kind of see it, right? Like you can kind of see this outline of it, but now I know that I want to go and extend this part and extend that part of the building as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm gonna have this part come out because I can even see here, right, that this piece needs to be larger too. So I'm just kind of fixing all my mistakes, if you will, or all the parts that I don't really like how they came out when I was first laying things down, and that's okay. You know, that's kind of part of the process, is that, you know, you put stuff down and you see how it looks, and then you can go and modify it, just like with drawing. When you draw with the pencil, you can kind of go and erase it by peeling back the wool that you drew with or that you needle felted down, and then you can make those modifications. Okay, so then I'm going to take the fiber and tuck it down again. See, so I'm trying to build this area in the picture over here, this rectangle space. Ooh, I think it went off camera. My apologies. Hang on. Let me see. Let's make sure that I'm seeing what you see. Hang on. I was looking in a different camera window. Okay, so yeah, so over here, there's like this part is what I'm trying to work with. Trying to make that little rectangle there. All right, well, I do appreciate your time and hanging out with me. And if you're interested in needle felting, I'm going to try to do another demonstration on Instagram tonight. So it's now 9:22, so I was about to go onto Instagram at 9:30. So I'm going to sign off here just because I was doing my first test to see how it would work to go live on YouTube. So now I know, and thank you for joining me and having the conversation about spinning and your farm and your sheep and your grandchildren. I really appreciate your company tonight. so I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep working on this. And I will try to come back and do another live. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. So thank you and take care.